Hello, all you paranormal freaks. It's the last Saturday of the month, and you know what that means. The veil is at its thinnest. So if you're brave enough, all of you hitchers and drifters, load up for a ride with Golden J and Logan as they traverse to the other side.
Hello, all of my paranormal freaks out there. It is I, Golden J.
That is a weird way of saying welcome back, all you hitchers and drifters, to the United States of Paranormal. But I'll take it. It is what it is.
You get it how it's going to come out of my mouth.
every podcaster's got to have that special intro to get into it. You got to have something that calls to the people, and yours definitely does call to the people.
Well, the brilliance of it is that if you listen to the Call Guys episode where they had ISOCam on, he actually said it right on the pod. He's like, I got to do this. It is I, Golden J.
I definitely heard it because I listen to the Call Guys as they come out every Monday.
I do too, because I always wait to see if Colton's going to say something about the Emperor.
Yeah, well, that's basically that's clockwork. That happens all the time.
He never disappoints.
That's right. It's Golden J and me, his co-host and future ghost, Logan, from the defunct Team Tejas.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm kind of back. I'm just here on the other side.
Well, he never really went anywhere. He was always here. He just was behind the scenes for a while.
Yeah, just peddling, working on merch and bothering people by giving them unrequested show notes after an episode.
It's still one of my favorite things is like, Logan, man, you know a lot about the paranormal. You should do a podcast. I never heard anything more about that. You didn't react to that one.
But I eat, sleep, and breathe the paranormal, man. I was never, like I said, I was never really gone. Just hiatus.
He was on hiatus. Well, our paranormal freaks and hitchers and drifters, welcome to the other side. The recap of the month of the United States Paranormal. We appreciate you listening to everything this month, and it's been a lot of fun being with the girls and going over stories, and they're doing a great job. And I'm assuming one of these month end recaps we'll get them on and have them as part of the other side as we kind of go along here. But me and Logan are going to just kind of talk about whatever from these 4 episodes, and maybe throw around a little bit of other stuff. You just never know.
Absolutely. If anything, this is like you watched your shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
You came home from work, you watched your TV shows. This show is the end of the night. The infomercials are popping on. We are the Billy Mays of the United States of Paranormal. It's done. You watch your episode of the Golden Girls. Now we're here trying to sell you a sham wow.
I'm all about a sham wow. You know that. Bring it on.
Talking about paranormal, like when Billy Mays passed away, this was back when I was still watching a lot of cable television with my buddies, sleep over his house, fall asleep watching Adult Swim or whatever.
Right.
Billy Mays passed away. There's nothing like being woken up to the sound of a dead man trying to sell you a slap chop or a mini grill station, because they ran those things for like half a year after he passed away.
Oh, I believe it. Well, they recorded them all, so why wouldn't you continue to use them? So
yeah, that's fair.
Do you ever see the parody they put out where it's like slap bitch? And
oh God,
slap
yeah,
bitch.
Yeah. The guy that did the slap chop commercials got in like a big legal issue because he got in a fight with a hooker.
Oh.
That's why it's called slap bitch, because he got in a physical fight with the hooker. Was not good.
I did see something, and I thought of you the other day. Have you seen the Ghost Adventures parody that there's some guys running around that do that, and they just just make fun of them the whole entire time.
I haven't, but there was one the CW put on. They had the CW Seed for a little while, which was their online service where they had special shows on there.
Uh-huh.
And they did one that was called Pet Squad. And it was like paranormal something. It was an acronym,
Uh-huh.
and it was making fun of all that. And one of the episodes that stuck to me the best is like, you know how they do the lock-in? They're like, no matter what, nobody's gonna open this basement door until the morning comes, right?
Right.
And it's these two like hillbilly couples. That there's like, yeah, our basement's haunted. We hear noises, all that. They get down there and they lock the door, and the guy's like, no matter what we say or do, you can't unlock this door. And fuckers get down there and they lock the door, and there's a bear down in the basement. And that's what's been making the noise. And those guys, they're like, oh, what they said, no matter what they say, don't let them out. And they're screaming, there's a bear down here. And they're like, that's probably a demon trying to get us to open the door.
It's a mimic. It's a mimic.
Yeah,
they're mimicking. Oh shit. You know, some of those parodies, you know, we talk about paranormal, we talk about you know, cryptids and stuff like that. You know, my big kick lately has been Bigfoot, and you know, in the episodes that's going to come out next month, we discuss in the Chiller Filler, we talk about Bigfoot and how the popularity is actually looks like it's really going up, and you're finding more and more Sasquatch stuff, you know, whether it be a license plate or stickers, or even you know, what do they call it when the stupid ass fucking, oh my god, it's been a really long day and my brain is dead, but an air freshener. You can get an air freshener with a Bigfoot on it. But you know, the popularity of Bigfoot and all that's going on, and it's just really interesting that that, you know, it's, I don't know how to say it. It's really cool that all that stuff's really kind of coming back around.
Yeah, well, as you say that, there's a Jeep in my parking lot that has a tire cover on the back that has Bigfoot holding like a flamingo yard ornament on it. It's just it's the reason. It's like when I was a kid and everything, where like the first ghost shows popped up and everything, like people didn't talk about ghost and Bigfoot and stuff because it was like it had a stereotype to it.
Uh-huh.
And nowadays the stereotype's gone.
Right.
It's cool to have a sticker on the back of your truck that says you're a Bigfoot hunter, or to talk about it and everything. But like back in the day when like X-Files was big and everything, people liked that show, but nobody was like, oh yeah, I'm a Sasquatcher, or I'm a Squatcher, or I'm a paranormal investigator, because it was looked upon as like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
But cryptozoology's been around forever. That's something we're going to discuss today. With like when we talk about the Bridgewater Triangle, I mean, that place was named by a cryptozoologist.
Oh, right on. I did not know that.
Yeah. So
it's crazy. Skywalker sent me a picture the other day. He was heading up to Mishawaka, and he sent me a picture of the back of this pickup truck, and they had the whole back of it with Sasquatch sitting on his side, and he had a raccoon over his junk. And that was the tailgate of the truck. Nice. So yeah, I mean, it's coming out everywhere. I mean, yeah. You'll find out in next week's episode. I talk about a girl at work that has got a couple items, and so you just have to tune in on Wednesday to hear about that.
Actually, I got a guy that comes in my shop all the time whose sister is considered a professional, and for people who can't see, air quotes, squatcher. And she that's what she does on her spare time. She takes time off from work to go squatching.
I don't know, man. I you know, I guess, you know, for the most part, the Sasquatch is not aggressive, you know, like it sees you and, you know, it's going to rip off both your limbs, but still, you know, you tread into their den or something. I can't imagine that that would go extremely well.
Yeah, no, it's like, I'm like you, I'm a believer in Sasquatch. Like, one of the stories I covered in the past with Team Tejas was the Tech, which is really, the Tech's just a Sasquatch by a different name. Just right. Like you have your Yetis and your skunk apes, is like everybody has, it's still the same big ape-like creature that leans more towards human than ape, but different cultures, different names. That's something that Jin got into with the mermaids too. I absolutely think they could exist. I mean, we absolutely have proof that there were things that did exist back in the day that supposedly went extinct, that were massive ape-like creatures that are exactly what people describe Sasquatch as.
Right. I don't know.
And
You know,
if they're
it's
from here, I don't know. I mean, I definitely buy into like the portal stuff, like you talk about. Like it could have been here, and the skeletons we found could have not been from here. Could have been from somewhere else, or who knows?
yeah. You just don't know. The big thing is just to believe and don't shut it out and enjoy it. I mean, come on. Why wouldn't you enjoy it? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's fun. I mean, you don't have to go squatching, but you can watch the shows and keep your interest up and listen to podcasts and
Oh,
all that
absolutely.
stuff. So
I mean, like, if we've been proven wrong so many times as a species, like where people recalled seeing sharks that were over 60 feet long, or giant octopuses that attack boats, and then those stopped becoming legends and started being scoffed at, and then not too long ago we find proof of giant squids that could have absolutely attacked a boat, or megalodons that were the size of 3 school buses lined up. Like, these things were all real, and we don't have a definitive date where these things died off, or
right.
if they all have died off. We thought the giant squid was gone until a couple years back, where they found one living. So who's to say that these species didn't exist, or there's some weird species that people see now as a cryptid that it might have existed before, and we just haven't seen it. This place is big. We don't know shit about our ocean. We
Mm-hmm.
don't really know shit about, we talked about in the Tech episode, there was a whole lost city that was massive that became legend. And then when we finally got the technology where we could map stuff from the sky, we're like, oh, hey, look, holy shit, that whole city's right there in the middle of the fucking jungle. and we can only see that because of deforestation. So God knows what else is out there.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I like the portal idea with Bigfoot, but with the size of some of those forests, I mean, there's no way that that he can't hide out there somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And that doesn't, and like I said, that forest is where there were stories of the Tech. That forest is in fact some of the places where we have found skeletal remains of giant Epithecus, or whatever the hell it was called, the actual giant human-like ape that
Right.
was said to die off forever. So was it a coincidence that the locals, who have no gain from telling these stories because they're not on the internet, they're tribes people, they don't
Right.
have a reason to be like, hey, I saw this out here. I believe they've seen something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because there's no gain.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that in several paranormal stories that we've done over the last year and a half, where the family doesn't want anything to do with it and left their homes, but the story still stands that they were the ones in it, and they were like, nope, don't want nothing, ain't talking to nobody.
Well, it's like the story that Aunt B is researching right now, the book she's reading,
The Perrin family.
The Perrin family.
Yep.
If it was up to the Perrin family, that story would have never got out.
Right.
But it got out because the people they involved to try to resolve it. Unfortunately, Ed and Lorraine, as big they are in the paranormal community, they were glory hounds. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
They would write books, they would sell books, they would get on the TV, things that didn't really help the families and spread the word.
Right.
Because, like, especially back then, if something like that happened, they're really, back then, before social media and followers and likes and stuff like that, there was no benefit to going public with it.
Right.
Because you just got like lambasted by people calling you kooks or insane, getting kicked out from your church.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to go at. Getting kicked out of the church was a big thing for them because because they were, involved in the church so heavily, and then to be shunned by that because of what's going on to them. I mean, that's not fair to them. I mean, that's during that time period, that's where they would turn. That's where they needed to turn for the support to get through something like that. And they got fucking kicked to the curb. And it's like, Jesus, come on. What the hell?
Especially to be ousted by Catholicism, which up until that point had trained exorcists and absolutely support the fact that exorcisms were a thing and possession was a thing. But at that time, we've talked about this before, on the heels of exorcisms going wrong.
Right.
And people losing their lives. And so they had it happen at the worst time, to where Catholicism was trying to remove themselves from that zeitgeist and that stuff. So instead of being like, hey, we'll take you in, we'll help, and this and that, they're like, no, we don't want nothing to do with this. And they push the family away, which puts the family in a worse mental state, which is exactly what a malicious spirit or demon would want.
Exactly.
And the worst part is the Catholic Church knows that, because they've dealt with that.
Because they feel alone now. I mean, yeah, they have no help, and it's always been said that they feed on that. The demons will feed on that desperation and fear and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's we are going to at some point revisit all of the Perrin family from that original episode, now that she's read the book. And I'm telling you right now, this could be a 2, 3, 4 episode deal, depending on, the information. Because the first book, as she just finished, doesn't even get up to Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah.
And there is a ton of shit in there that is pretty amazing in it. So I'm excited to, when the two of them are ready, Jen and J-Dub and the Rocker Chick are going to kind of tag team that going into it, because they're both reading the book. So
yeah. So are they going to dive into Ed and Lorraine have a book on that case too? Are they going to dive into that?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we will. We'll get through. House of Darkness, House of Light is a 3-book, trilogy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rocker Chick has finished the first book. Jen's working on it. So when we get to that point, we'll do an episode about that book, and then we will move on to the second book later down the road. And I just think since it's the daughter who wrote the book, one of the parent daughters,
mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of detail in those books, and it's just going to be insane. Golden J is just going to sit here and watch the two of them just.
That's the best.
Yeah.
When you get to sit there and watch.
Yeah, just enjoy the story as it comes out. And yeah, once again, with Team Tejas leaving, the J-Dub and the Rocker Chick have definitely picked up, the slack of that extra 2 episodes a month, and they're doing a great job. We've been getting a ton of emails, from our listeners, and I so much appreciate them. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the emails and all the support that 2SOP listeners have given us, and welcome them J-Dub into the scenario. The Rocker Chick's always been in there. I don't know if she's ever done a 2SOP before, but it's pretty cool to get the support of the fans, and it's been great. So
oh, absolutely. As you're saying that, hell, we got an email tonight. So I mean, like, they're coming in. The girls are killing it. Your guys' rapport with each other is great. It's just you're listening to friends talk about friends and loved ones talk about the paranormal. And I've always been a firm supporter of. I know there's people out there that, especially with today's TikTok mentality, to where like people want the juice right then and there. They want like the gist of it. Like people want to mainline that spooky right away. That's not what this show is. This show is about the paranormal, but this show is people talking about the paranormal.
Right.
You get to, I think that's why the fans we do have love to write in and talk to us, is because we're not just stories, we're personalities. You get to know us. They talk to us because we feel like friends and family, because they know about our everyday lives. They know what we've done, from like our dogs being sick, or issues with kids, or shitting in a bucket on the side of the road. They feel like they're part of the friendship and the family. And that's what I like about 2SOP. 2SOP is a road trip with friends to spooky destinations. And that's what it's been from the start. And
let me tell you, I'm heading to Kansas City here in a couple of weeks, and I'm totally meeting up somehow, some way. I'm going to meet up with Larissa out there. I think that is, it's a highlight for me to be
Absolutely.
able to meet the fans, especially the ones that, it's not like you're walking into your place of work and they were like, "Oh, hey, I listened to your podcast last night. It was really good." These are people you don't know, have never met, and to be able to get a chance to meet them, I mean, you can't go wrong. So, I'm looking forward to meeting Larissa here in a couple weeks. We're gonna get it figured out and take her a little bag of goodies from the Golden Mojo Empire.
Nice. It's just trippy knowing like there's people out there we've never met that are wearing shirts we designed,
Uh-huh.
or like they're just talking about our show, or like that. It's just a weird thought, This it's a weird concept, and I'm saying this being a guy that like I've got my whole Ranger stuff going on, and I set up an interview with another Power Ranger day and everything, and that feels less surreal than this does. This to me is what's like crazy. Like
Yeah.
the people emailing and buying shirts, and like it's just bonkers.
It's insane. Speaking of shout outs, did you catch your shout out on Guys with Issues?
I did. I listened to that today after I listened to multiple episodes of Two Stop at like a time and a half speed. Yeah, I shot those guys an email. Their con men episode today.
Right.
I like the name. I like their naming system. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The issues and how they always do a pun and everything. And they seem like really pleasant guys. They're definitely I would love to be on the show and talk comic books, because I eat, sleep, and breathe that. I've been reading comic books since I was a kid in Indiana. I wrote that in that letter today, saying that my first books I picked up at the Warsaw bookstore, which was not Chimps. As a kid, I didn't know Chimps existed. There was on it's hard to explain Warsaw, the main street, there used to be just a bookstore.
It was called Reader's World.
That is where I picked up my comic books.
Right on.
Because I grew up with my father, who still to this day has bookshelves of like manuals and magazines telling him how to fix specific things.
Right.
And that's where he would go get that stuff. Like my dad would have never walked me in a comic book store. He had no reason to ever be in a comic book store.
That's true.
But he drugged me to that bookstore all the time to get his manuals on carpentry, or like how do you fix a 1967 Honda Civic or some shit. And so I would walk around in there, and there, of course, they're behind the counter. There was Beanie Babies and shit, but there was comic books, which I only knew were back there because my sister would read Archie comics.
Okay.
And that's where I found my first comic books I ever bought. I first picked up Sonic the Hedgehog because I played Sonic on Sega. And then I picked up Ghost Rider because it's a dude with a flaming skull, leather jacket on a motorcycle. And my dad looked at it and he was like, "That looks cool. That's fine. Get that." And then I grabbed an issue of Hellblazer and stuck it in there too, which I should not have been reading at 7. But
I think they mentioned that on that episode.
Well, but I mean, that helped shape me because Constantine's all about paranormal, exorcisms, demons, all that. And same with Ghost Rider. And then it's weird how I turned out to eat, sleep, and breathe at the altar of paranormal as an adult.
Right.
So
my and I don't know why we're talking comics, but mine is that my dad would come home, and about twice a week, because he worked kind of an evening kind of thing. So he'd get home about 8, 9 o'clock, and he would come home and he'd either have one of two things in his pocket. Either it would be a pocket full of candy bars or there'd be comic books. And, either one I was thrilled with. And, I had a lot of, I don't even, I was a kid. I didn't take care of comic books,
absolutely.
So I don't know if there ever was anything that was ever worth anything, but, Batman, Spider-Man, Hulk, those kind of stuff that is what I had growing up. So I've always been a big superhero fan. I mean, I've always been a Spider-Man fan because those were my favorite, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense with you. On top of that, your dad was a wrestler, and you've always been involved in that stuff. And what are wrestlers if not like the personification of superheroes? They all had their gimmicks and their costumes.
Yep.
But comic books are just like the paranormal, because back in the day when I was in high school and before then, having comic books made you a nerd. And it wasn't something you're like, "Oh, I got the new Iron Man." And nowadays, people are like, I got Iron Man. People got Iron Man on the car, tattoos of him. But like when I was a kid, it was like, oh, you're a nerd. You read comic books.
Yeah, it's true. I don't remember ever having that whole nerd syndrome, but I mean, I didn't carry comic books around with me. I had them in a box at home, and I would every once in a while pull them out and kind of leaf through them, and you know, yeah, there was a couple Batman that I had that were like disturbing, you know, where Batman's holding Robin in his hand and Robin just disintegrates in the sand. And I'm like, oh, what is going on here?
Yeah, no, I went to school with nothing but comic books in my backpack. I'd go to school with a quarter long box in my backpack, and that's what I would do all day. So.
Well, let's get into reviewing.
Absolutely.
Reviewing Tucson for the month. Where do you want to start?
Oh, I got it all lined up right here for you. We're going to go chronological.
All right, let's go.
So, all right. The first story we had of the month of August was we had the rocker chick. She took the wheel. The first story of the month on August 2nd was the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah.
Which are little facts about the Bridgewater Triangle. In 1970s, it was named by renowned New England-based cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman.
Okay.
She actually authored a book back then called Mysterious America. So, like we were just talking about, cryptozoologists have been around forever.
Right.
That whole area is known by the Bridgewater Triangle, and it's only entitled that because a certain cryptozoologist was out there and was like, "Oh, there's so much shit going on right here.
Right.
It's got to have a specific name." And then she wrote a book that talked about it. But the triangle thing goes into something that you guys have mentioned and I've talked about is like the way lines, the like intersections of certain places having that you've talked about with water and other things, like intersections of certain graphical things that amp up or seem to bring in paranormal actions. Because like Bobby said in that, the rocker chick, there was everything there. You had stuff from alien sightings, Bigfoot, spirits, mythological creatures, bizarre rituals, the occultists being drawn to that area.
Right.
You know?
Large snakes, puckwudgies, and
Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain areas in the world that just seem to, those lines land just perfectly, and it causes like a nexus to like crazy ass paranormal stuff, just like you got your Bermuda Triangles and all sorts of shit like that.
Right.
So, I mean, I always like stories like that because like she covered like 4 or 5, 6 different things.
Right.
And it just seems like those way lines like amp up stuff because out there you've got like prominent structures out there, like what was well, you had the Solitude Stone, which was aka the Suicide Stone.
Oh, yep.
And then you had Profile Rock, which I don't know if she showed you a picture of Profile Rock.
I actually, when I was doing the socials for that episode, I actually found it. And of course, you know, when you live it and edit it, you know, somewhere I missed it and I would have put it on the socials, but I did see it.
Yeah, it's shaped just like a man. It resembles the Eastern Island heads.
Really. Exactly. Yeah.
If it wasn't purposely carved out, you know?
Right.
It's like it's still got like the jagged edges and stuff, but it looks perfectly like a man's face.
Yeah.
And like she said in there, that it's that rock seems to be haunted by Native American spirit that just kind of like sits up there and chills on that one.
Was there a Native American burial ground on the property anywhere?
Oh, that whole area was known to have a massive amount of Native Americans that had settled there and everything. And unfortunately, where there was Native Americans, there was unjust murder and all that awful stuff. So that's why the like haunted Indian burial grounds became such a trope. Because I mean, if you think about it, a lot of spirit stuff happens because of bad energy or confused spirits. And that just goes hand in hand with Native American culture, unfortunately, because so much bad happened to them everywhere.
Well, and I think you can also play on the fact that, you know, these burial grounds are getting disturbed, you know, and people are, you know, planting fields or building houses in these areas. And, you know, when you disturb a body that is at rest, now you've totally stirred up a whole different scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
But I've seen and read about different facts that sometimes they don't even know that those burial grounds are there, because everything for that time period is unmarked. They just the Native Americans knew where it was at, but when they were out of there, and Farmer John takes it over and starts planting his corn out there,
Yeah,
he doesn't know.
Because settlers, like, regardless, like, before we got here, the Native Americans had specific places they thought were sacred, certain places that they thought were tainted that they stayed away from, and then, like you said, they had places they buried their dead.
Right.
And the settlers didn't give a shit about any of that. So once they were dead and gone, if there was a graveyard or the version of a graveyard that they had back then just knock it down, build whatever.
Right.
And unfortunately, like, at this point in civilization, everywhere is a fucking graveyard.
True.
Especially in the United States, like, if you're not stepping on a Native American's grave, you're stepping on some guy that died in the Civil War and that was just left there,
right?
Or a settler that died and was put there because gravestones back in the day and stuff. If somebody died while they're on an expedition or something, they stick a fucking stick in the ground shaped like a fucking cross and move on.
Yep. Exactly.
And then you got stuff like, as we talked about in that episode, the Bridgewater Triangle. There were man-made structures out in that triangle that were haunted too. Like, you had BSU, which was the Bridgewater State University, the Taunton State Hospital, and the Horbine School, I believe is what it was called.
Okay.
And like, some of these things had reasons for being haunted. Like the hospital, there was a lot of hinky shit and people died.
Right.
And like, hospitals tend to be haunted. But like, it makes you wonder if like these places have more activity because of the events that transpired in them, or is it because of the land that they're buried in? And then when you get into something like the Bridgewater Triangle, where it seems to be this nexus for paranormal activity, are these places just haunted because the energy that is stuck in this structure, this triangle,
right,
it just amps it up so spirits get confused or trapped? And unfortunately, that's some stuff that we'll never have an answer to, just speculation. And
I'm trying to remember because, the episode itself, was almost a month ago, and the recording was even farther back than that. Was there a portal that they thought was in the middle of that too? A middle of the triangle? Yeah,
there's a few that they speculated, and I want to talk about that because you guys talked about puckwudgies, which are kind of like a fae thing, like fairy folk-esque.
Right, yeah.
What really interested me when she was telling her story was the boy that disappeared and then popped back up.
Yeah, the one that was selling flowers.
Yeah, he came back out of nowhere, was like, "You want to buy flowers?" And he didn't have flowers in his hand. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with, like, and Alicia talked about it before, fae folk or fairy folk, and their lore in Ireland and overseas where it all started. Fairies were never looked upon as good things.
Right.
Back then, fairies were like the modern day equivalent to aliens. People talk about fairies like, you fuck around, a fairy's going to take you, and we might not ever see you again. And that was like their whole goal, was to spirit you away.
Wasn't part of Alicia's thing that the fairies would, the fairies would take you and leave not the same person in this place.
Yeah, they replace you. They take you away and replace you with a fae folk in your form.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories of some people claiming they got back from that realm and didn't know what happened, time lapsed and everything. Really kind of goes hand in hand with alien abduction.
Right.
With how those tales are told. But that boy came back after being gone for however long, and they're like, there's no way he survived just fine by himself. And he comes back acting odd, saying like, you want to buy these flowers, and they're not flowers, but in his brain, this is what flowers are, right?
Right.
So, I mean, when I heard that story instantly while I was in my car, I was like, it sounds like that boy got fucking spirited away by some fairies or something. And he's either coming back with his head fucked up, or that's not him anymore. Right. It's something trying to act like him. So it's got muddy sticks, and it's like, you want to buy some flowers? This is what a kid does, right? And everybody's like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
3 days. I believe that he was missing for 3 days when he come wandering out of there.
And for them to find him unscathed and everything after 3 days, that's I feel like he was somewhere else, or he just never came back and something else came back.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. That's a possibility.
That's why
Yeah.
fairies scare me way more than aliens, J-Dub.
Oh, J-Dub and her aliens. Oh my. Yeah. Get prepared for the next episode coming out Wednesday.
Oh man.
Yep. I'm just saying, sneak preview as she talks aliens. So
J-Dub's actually diving.
J-Dub does an alien episode, and I'll tell you right now, it's a good episode, but it was rough for her to get through. So
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
It was like Alicia tackling dolls back in the day. She hates dolls, but she still covered Doll Island, you know? They had a whole month of dolls.
Yeah, the whole month of dolls, and she takes the one place that has 5 million dolls on it.
The one place that none of us. I'll go visit Harold the doll in the museum. You know, he's got rules. If I follow him, I'm fine. I'm not going to that fucking island. I got no urge to be stuck on a little island with a bunch of fucked up dolls that might randomly talk in the middle of the night. Nope.
Yeah, no curiosity whatsoever when it comes to the island of dolls, huh?
No, absolutely not. But speaking of J-Dub, we tackled our second story of the month, which was on August 9th. And was it? We had mermaids. We did mermaids.
We did mermaids. When she called and she said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this," I got super excited because I think mermaids is one of those things that we don't necessarily think of as a cryptid or paranormal, but I mean, they revolve so much around it. And, all of the stories and everything from over the decades and centuries, revolved around it. I thought it was great. And I loved her stories. And yeah, the mermaids one was really, really good. And I was super excited when she told me about it.
It's like you're saying, it's one of those things we don't think of as cryptids, but that's because it's literally been around for so long.
Well, we commercialized it. I mean, the Little Mermaid, for Christ's sake, everybody's like, "Oh, the Little Mermaid." And you're like, it's a fucking siren, man.
Yeah, we're desensitized to it because back in the day it was like, instead of like, "Oh, it's a mermaid," it was, "Oh, fuck, it's a mermaid." All the way back in African water spirits, Caribbean deities, and then we had fucking massive important sailors to our history that claim they saw it, from Christopher Columbus. Like she talked about, where he was like, "I saw a mermaid, and let me tell you, they're not as fuckable as everybody says they are. They look like fat men that you would find at a bar at the end of fucking closing time."
Yep, exactly. On the end of Thirsty Thursday.
Yeah, or we had John Smith, like she said he saw one, and they had big eyes and green hair, and he was like, "I fell in love instantly until I realized the bottom half of it was a fucking
fish."
Was a fish." And then he was like, "Nah, I'm good.
I don't even know how to eat that."
Yeah, as long as we've been around and been able to tell stories, people that got on the ocean have told stories about mermaids. Now, albeit they might be drunk sailors who were trying to make up fathomable reasons why they stuck it in a manatee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or they might have saw something. Or hell, maybe it was Blackbeard trying to keep people away from certain waters or islands because he had something out there. Or maybe he did see something that he was like, "I won't even sell out there, so I wouldn't fucking recommend it."
Yeah, that's always been the theory is that the manatee is what they actually saw. And, the fact that they were on the ocean for such long periods of time.
Oh, yeah.
You get that delusional a little bit. But, I mean, there are clippets of videos out there of what looks like a mermaid jumping. I know I seen one that was like on top of the cliff and looking down at a rock, and the mermaid sees the camera and jumps into the water. And of course, that newer video of the mermaid laying on the beach and I don't even know. It's I'm trying to think of where that was, but when I sent it to J-Dub after we had recorded that, I said, "Hey, look what I found." And she's like, "I don't know that I believe this. It just does not look realistic. Camera work was shoddy, but I mean, it was like 3 feet away from it. And, I suppose there could be a camera trick of some sort, but
yeah,
It was definitely an interesting video, and that one's out there. Actually, if you Google just mermaids, you'll find it. It's not that hard to find, but yeah. So I think I used one of the pictures in our socials for that week of that particular mermaid.
Yeah. Well, she talked about a few like modern divers and stuff seeing stuff, which like is very feasible, but that we were talking about pirates. It is, I don't know if you know what grog was back in the day, but
Yeah,
for
it's
pirates,
it was like a rum or a whiskey or something, right?
well, it was for pirate back in the day when people were on boats, pirate or not pirate. For those voyages, they could not keep just water stored, because in the barrels and stuff below deck where it's dark, it would grow algae and all that shit. So in order to keep their water from doing that, they had to mix their water with rum and different things to make it to where it won't turn. So basically they were operating on a constant blood alcohol level. Their water had booze in it.
Right.
And you know the story of booze, the longer the booze sits in a barrel, the more stout it's getting.
Yep.
So that could go into it too. And that could be said the same thing about like deep sea divers seeing stuff, like your oxygen levels and pressures fuck with your brain.
Right.
And who knows? I don't know if she kind of touched base on it. In 2012, there was a really controversial documentary that was aired on Animal Planet called Mermaids, the Body Found. The documentary was marketed as a real thing on Animal Planet, which was like a reputable channel.
Right.
Leaning towards like this controversial theory, which I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called the aquatic ape hypothesis.
I'm not.
This documentary had manufactured real footage and evidence, yet again with the air quotes, of tools and all sorts of shit like that. It was talked about by actors that were labeled as biologists or experts in the field, like attributed to like oceanography and stuff. And I was living in Galveston when this happened, and this documentary just drops. They don't say it's fake. They don't market it as fake. And this shit, like, at the end of it, you were drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. Like you were a Heaven's Gate motherfucker being like, I'm gonna go see the aliens in the sky.
Right.
Shit. Like it just was like, oh, this makes sense. They were like, some apes, instead of going deeper onto the land, went back into the ocean, and they developed this, and like they learned how to use tools just like we did on the earth, but underwater, and they developed gills and tails. And I'm talking, this thing blew up in a big bad way. When it aired on May 27th in 2012, it had 1.9 million views back in 2012 that day. That is Animal Planet's second most views telecast in its history, only being beaten by Steve Irwin's memorial service after he passed away.
Steve.
Yeah, and so a year later, after it came out as a hoax, and they announced it was a hoax, because they had to do it really quick, because like there was a lot of feedback really fucking quick. People are wigging out. It was kind of like the War of the Worlds shit when it telecast on radio back in the day.
Yeah,
people saw it, and they're like, Animal Planet wouldn't make shit up.
Right.
And so people kind of wigged the fuck out. I mean, I was living on a fucking island when that dropped, and people were all getting weird and shit. People were going out on boats like, I'm gonna find a mermaid, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and like eventually they're like, this was a hoax, we made this, blah blah. And then they followed up a year later with another fake one, but people knew it was fake this time, and it was called A Mermaid, the New Evidence. But it was surreal, man. And if you ever get time to check it out, listeners, or even you, Golden J, I'd watch it. Like I said, that was called Mermaid, the Body Found, and it was convincing. It really was.
Bought the Kool-Aid package, huh?
Oh, dude. Like you said, you don't expect Animal Planet back then to be like, hey, man, here's this mockumentary, and like bury the lead, not say shit until after it's aired, But it panned out for them because they made some bank off that show.
Oh, yeah. They accomplished what they were after right there. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe there's stuff out in the ocean. I don't know if we have. I wouldn't think that it was more human, if anything, out there. I feel like, if anything, it might be like a subspecies that adapted down there. that looks human-like, but I wouldn't say that it's like our relative. You
Right.
know, I'd
Well,
say
you
it's
know,
just some creature that looks like us, might have some hair or something like hair, and it's got arms.
adaptivity is what this planet is made of, where you have a fish that can walk on land because they've
Yeah.
adapted and stuff like that. So I mean, I think it's entirely possible. I'm a believer in all of that stuff. um Even if it's just the fact that I get to hang on to the myth and the hope that maybe someday I'll get to see one. You just never know.
I definitely am a fan of thinking there's something out there that is intelligent enough to be like, it wants to eat a person, so it makes a noise
Right.
that is enticing to a person, or it's like, hey, these guys that float around on that big wooden thing seem to be very horny, so maybe I'll just like flash my weird fish tits at them and get them in the water.
Just get a little bit
Hey,
closer.
hey, creatures adapt. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
story we covered this month, but like the Glimmering Man, it was out there making noises to like call people towards it.
Oh yeah.
Creatures and animals adapt. I mean, there are animals that mimic the sound of children to get attention.
Right, right. And the fact that, that they have that down, a woman yelling, help me, help me. And, these people are going and looking to say, well, if somebody's in desperate need of help, so let's go find them. And then they just get smacked down by the Glimmer Man. Although I don't know that the Glimmer Man had many of those stories where they were, um, you know, evil like that. They just kind of seem to really just kind of be there to watch over
Well,
everything.
Yeah, I
It
think
was
it's the stories of the survivors. Like maybe there's some people out there that didn't make it back.
that is very true. We have talked about that too. That you hear about these stories from people who survived them. You don't hear about the stories of people who didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Oh,
do
yeah.
believe that last story in the Glimmer Man, when it came talking about that hunter who was out there, in the dark with his brand new night scope and all that. I don't know that was a Glimmer Man, man. I almost think that could have been a Skinwalker. So,
Oh, it could have been. Skinwalkers are definitely something that has to be covered eventually. But like you were saying earlier, with like multi-parters for the family and everything, like Skinwalkers have got such a fucking deep history with so many sightings. Like I feel like that would have to be a multi-parter on its hell. Skinwalker Ranch by itself is at least 2 episodes, bare minimum. So
yeah, that's the well, I with Skinwalker for me, um, the obviously we're right back to the Glimmer Man with one of the stories from the hippie out there doing the meditation at Skinwalker Ranch and getting charged by a predator entity or whatever. And to me, that's more believable than watching the Skinwalker Ranch TV show where like we shot a rocket in the air and it didn't went this way and it wasn't supposed to go this way. But it's like, come on, man. How many fucking rockets are you guys going to send up in the air when you have all this equipment? If there's something hovering there, you should be able to pick it up on some sort of infrared or radar or something.
yeah.
No, we're going to shoot rockets at it.
Yeah, no, I'm not for that. But like I believe thoroughly, and we're getting a little off task, but I believe thoroughly in Skinwalkers because that comes back around to Native Americans and stuff before these legends. They come from something.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't something natives back then weren't telling stories. If a Native American back then, pre-colonization and everything, was telling their tribe they saw something that they interpreted as a threat, they were doing it for survival. They weren't doing it to be like, oh, be scared of this. They were doing this because it was perceived as a threat or something that could be dangerous, and they wanted the rest of their tribe to know about it.
Right.
And that's how it spread. It was for survival, not for shits and giggles, likes and follows.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're not trying to be an Instagram superstar.
Well, yeah, back then, if you tell a story to your fucking buddy and you're like, hey, this thing was out here, it looked like this, I think it meant me harm. You telling him that story and it not being true could cost him his life.
Right.
Because he could see something that he perceives as that, and it put him in a situation that could cost him his life. So it really wasn't, there was no reason to be making shit up.
Right.
back then. It
Right.
was everything back then was about respecting animals, respecting surroundings, and if something like that came up and became a thing, is because there was something that happened in those situations that birthed that story. That story was told for a reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's move on to our next
Well, it's in the realm of Glimmer Man because it was a story told by you. Well, 5 stories. Or was it 5? Was it 5 or was it 4?
I think it was 5.
It was 5
Yeah.
stories. It was you had us with Haunted Indiana with 5 separate stories covered by you on August 16th. And the first story was in Nashville, Indiana. And it was the Story Inn.
Yes.
And Still Tavern is what I found out that tavern that is in the Story Inn is called.
Okay. All right. I found I don't know, I talked about it in the episode that they call it in Nashville, but it's not really in Nashville. It's like clear around on the other side of the Hoosier National Forest. Now, mind you that, it's not like, Nashville's on the north side and Story's on the far side, but it's like you got to round the corner and go around to get to Story, as they say in quotes there. But they call it Nashville, which kind of threw me off because I thought there for a minute when I first ran across it, I'm like, oh, must be downtown Nashville, but it's not. It's in a little town that is all but defunct basically, and the only thing keeping it alive is this little inn and this bar. And like J-Dub said, she can, she rode her horses to it, and they parked the horses and then went into the bar.
Rode the fact that you have to say rode their horses to it still fucking blows my mind. I live in Texas and ain't nobody riding a horse fucking nowhere. But J-Dub's up in northern Indiana, and she was like, "Yeah, I rode my horse to that."
She rode her horse there, yeah. Well, but to be honest, they were camping at a horse campground of some sort. I'm not sure what it was called or anything, but she loves her horses.
Yeah, she's horse people, that's for sure. That I looked up a picture of that place, and that, like she was talking about, it looks old as fuck on the outside. Like it looks like a rundown building, but then I saw pictures of the inside. Whoo, that place is fancy on the inside.
Yeah, they definitely have done more work on the in than the out. And I think they did that on purpose. I don't think they built the outside up to make it this, magnificent looking building. I think they kept it the way it was because of the history of it and the history of the town and all that.
Oh, and it catches the eye better too. When it looks like that, you're like, holy shit, that place looks old.
Yeah, I need
and
to
you
go
walk
check
into
it out.
it blows your mind. But like, did you know that J-Dub had been there before you did the story on it?
Yeah, I did. Because I had, we try to communicate between the three of us on what we're doing and so on and so forth. So I had talked to her and I said, hey, this is my idea for this week, and these are the 5 places that I'm going to do. And she's like, oh, I've been to the Story Inn. I'm like, cool. So yeah, I knew
Good.
Going into the recording of it. So
okay,
we try to communicate.
It looks dope. I mean, you're doing better than what we did. We never on Tejas, we never communicated. I didn't know who was doing what until it was hidden. It was lucky that we never end up doing the same stories as each other over there.
Well, and that's something else too, is that when we get into these, as Team Hoosiers kind of continued on, the girls asked me for a list of everything that was done because they don't want to repeat, something that, Alicia had done or I had done, or even Team Tejas. So, they hit me up and they're like, hey, have you done this? And then I just go back to my list and was like, nope, nobody did that.
You mean to tell me you didn't look them in the face and you didn't tell them to go fucking learn their backlog, but like start at episode 0 and get at it. Learn about anal tuberculosis.
Yeah, there you go.
Stuff.
I was just so grateful to have them. I would have done anything they would have asked.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I don't know. I say it a million times. I'm very lucky to have them. And as far as the backlog goes, I know J-Dub has listened to a lot of them. but when you're getting into research mode, because we are recording every other week, everything is still as fresh as we can get it, and without recording, every week for the following week.
Yeah.
When you're researching that much and trying to put your story together, spending time going in the backlog is, it might be a little much.
Oh, absolutely. It's daunting for any podcast listener to like get into a show and then be like, I need to catch up, and then look at like, I mean, we're still a new podcast, really. We haven't even hit 2 years yet, but we still have, I mean, your episode a week, man. That adds up real quick, and they're all different times. You got like 40-minute episodes, a 2-hour episode.
Oh,
and like live brewery shows, which went on for, I can't remember how long them suckers ran.
They were a couple hours, I think. And we're at, we actually just recorded episode 75, which will come out next week. So we've done 75 episodes. And of course, there's a couple episodes that were, it wasn't like every week. For Dolltober last year, everybody did a doll story. So that was 5 for, that month. Plus, you did the
brewery show
on actual Halloween. And so, those add up. When we hit, let's see, what will it be? 104, which will be, 2 years, will actually have been, it'll be a little bit before, because we did add a couple episodes. And now that we're doing the other side, that's going to add another episode. So, it'll be interesting to see where we're at an actual physical 2 years, how many episodes we've done.
Yeah, that would be crazy to look at. Like I said, Gunnar says it too. Everything's weird in podcast land.
Absolutely.
How everything drops. And it's like with the guys with issues, they dropped that Conman episode and they're like, this is as close to a live episode as we've ever got.
Yeah.
So like the next issue you hear for them is going to be something that was recorded before the Conman episode, technically.
Yeah. And like, if you actually paid attention really closely to the first 6 episodes, they recorded those back in like January and February.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got their backlog a little bit. They were trying to work things out. So that's how they ended up there.
It's tricky to learn. We learned that firsthand when we were starting off. It's like, at first when you first get in, it just makes sense to you to be like, I need to get a big backlog. And when I get in the studio, I need to record as much as I can because it makes sense. But then it hits you down the road. You're like, okay, by the time this episode gets out, this much time will have passed. So these events would have happened, but we're not talking about these events. And the more backlog you have, the more distant you feel from your fans. Because if they email you, you're not getting to that email for them to hear until like a month or 2 later.
And I feel bad just, the fact that we are even 2 or 3 weeks out from emails coming in that we're not getting to because of our recording schedule. And we're, like I said, we record every 2 weeks. We do a couple episodes, and then, those next come out. So you're like 2 or 3 weeks. If say Larissa, emails me, it's going to be 3 weeks before I get the live or the podcast response to her, where you get to read the email and stuff like that. But we're closer than what you guys were when you guys, like the Sedecker episodes. I mean, you guys sat on those for almost a year, right?
Well, yeah, because like we had plans for it to come out, and it was still already going to be like a backlogged episode when it dropped. But then we did Dolltober,
right? So
that whole month pushed it off even farther. So it, like I said, it gets tricky to where we started doing it, like trying to record like the week. It was the weekend before the Wednesday it dropped.
Right.
Which it has its perks and has its downfalls because you rush. And if you run into issues, there's problems.
Right. Absolutely.
And podcasting is not as easy as you think it is.
You think you just sit down behind a mic and spat your shit and then just throw it out there. But, you get into issues along the way. A mic sound you didn't like, the editing of and so on and so forth. Or maybe you have a co-host that just says some inappropriate shit, you just don't know. So you edit it out, and you're trying to get it done. And in your guys' case, you guys were sending them to me to post. And, I'm like chomping at the bit. Here it is, 11 o'clock at night, my time, before the episode's coming out. And I'm like, you guys are killing me here. Come on. I need to go to bed after work.
I was promising you, I was there sweating with you. I fucking assure you.
But as I progress in the podcasting world, man, and listen to more and more different podcasts, whether it be a paranormal or a sports one or whatever, there's a lot of imperfections out there that these people are putting out who have millions of viewers. And I was like, yeah, we've tried so hard to be absolutely perfect when we don't have to be.
Yeah, from the get-go, that was a big thing. Was our hard push was like this, it's all got to be perfect. The sound's got to be perfect. This has got to be perfect. And
Right.
that's just added stress. But it's
Yeah.
like with anything, the longer you do it, the more comfortable you get, and the more you understand it. I mean, I definitely, like I said, our team bowed out, and what episode was that? It was the year mark.
52.
52, we bowed out. I don't know exactly what the other guys have been up to creative. I know Matt's always spinning his wheels. He's always doing something. He's working on movies, working on sound. He's a college teacher for all that stuff. Boze, I don't know exactly what he's up to. I know he works sound stuff every now and then too. But like, I never really stopped. I listened to everything in the Golden Image Empire.
Right.
So I've been from the start of this, before I was even part of TUSOP. I was listening to Murder Nerds because you told me, you're like, hey, I'm working on this thing.
Yep.
And I was one of those people that fucking sent Murder Nerds fucking 7 paragraphs on a weekly basis, being like, hey, I think this is what went on. And I've been nonstop consuming it. If I think something, I don't usually email. I usually just send it a message in the chat or something, to somebody, because it's not necessarily that I need or want it to be on the shows. I just want to be like, I thought this or that. And then constantly still like working on the shop or talking to Esteban, or like, even though I wasn't like an active part of the team, like I'd like, you guys sit there and talk about something we grew up with, hearing about the great white bald beaver, and you keep name dropping it. And I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, if I made that a shirt, what would I want it to be? And I sit there and I draw this. I'm at work on my forklift and I get out my sticky pad and I draw this crude ass picture of a fucking bald beaver with a fucking Band-Aid on it, on a log with a pair of female swim bottoms, and DD carved on it. And I'm like, this would be a cool shirt. And I send it to Esteban, which he's a blessing, because that man gets my brain like nobody else. I send him this shitty picture that I drew on the forklift, and he's like, I got you, Logan. I get exactly what you're saying. Then he sends me a sketch right away, and it's always perfect. We got really lucky with that dude, because he is
he does some pretty amazing work. Yeah, for sure.
I tell you what, we might be an amateur like podcast, but fuck, do we not have some of the best podcast merch I've ever seen?
Oh yeah, which you can find at the United States of Paranormal.com.
Absolutely. And as you're listening to this, after you're done, go check it out. We will absolutely have the Other Side merch uploaded on there, so check it out.
Yep, we are. It is. Yeah, you gotta love it. We didn't finish really Haunted Indiana. We just kind of touched on Story Inn.
Yeah, we didn't get to. That was the first story. We didn't get to. The second story was the Edna Collins Bridge, which that was it's a sad story.
Sad story. Yeah. Not only did she lose her life, whether it by trying to rescue her dog or whether it was malicious and somebody killed her, but the mom then just being so much in dread to go down there and hang herself on the bridge. And now, once again, when you go down there to the bridge and do what, the step-by-steps that you're supposed to do, it doesn't always happen for everybody. So, there was some articles I read on some investigators who went and had done it. Nothing's happened. And while they're there, a group shows up, they did it, nothing happened, and they left. And then a few hours later, later in the evening, darkness, another group shows up and they tried doing all that stuff and nothing happened. So, maybe it's maybe it has to be a full moon, or maybe, it's hard to say, but if you go check out the Edna Collins Bridge in Putnam County, you may or may not get results. But
yeah, no, I'm a firm believer of paranormal events they're not they're not clockwork. They're not a trained animal that
Right.
knows a command and everything. Like, I, especially with something like this, where it seems to be a spirit reacting to something it was accustomed to while it was alive,
Right.
with the honking of the horn 3 times. And her mind was, my parents are here to get me.
Right.
And I feel like they're sometimes it triggers, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we don't the things we don't know about the paranormal. We don't know what kind of energy is acquired for an event to break through. We don't know what a spirit is doing when it is not doing the stuff that we expect it to do.
Right.
Like, how long does it have to save up energy to be able to cause an event, let alone show up and like touch a car,
Right.
to where something we can see it? Like, are they cognitive? Is that spirit of that girl aware of her surroundings all the time? Or is it like a death echo, to where it's like a brief moment in time, she is reliving a part of her living life and it is interacting with our world? So it's not going to happen all the time.
Right. Yeah, and to expect it. I mean, Timmy was a prime example from Waverly Hills. Everybody was like, "Oh, he doesn't fucking exist." But you have to be patient with stuff like that too. So, you can't just walk in, throw the ball down, and like, "Okay, Timmy, throw it back," and expect it to come rolling right back. So,
yeah, and that's why a lot of paranormal investigators revisit the same places,
right,
because they're like, it didn't hit this time for me. But like, you can, is speaking as somebody that has had paranormal encounters himself. I've never talked about him on the podcast because I'm a firm believer my situation was really not pleasant. So I just kind of keep it at the back of my mind and don't like talking about it. But like, paranormal places with like spirits and stuff, they feel different.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you can just feel it in the air. The air feels soupy. It
Yeah.
feels like thick. Your body reacts different. You get chicken skin, and it's just like it's something you can't kick. And like, I feel like places like this, that's why paranormal investigators come back, because just because they didn't have an instance the first time they went there, you can feel that there's something off about that area. There's something different. Something's there. It just has not shown itself yet. It's like those
Right.
old picture books where you had to stare at those fucking paintings. They were like all this obscure shit until you saw the picture unveil itself to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I feel like. I feel like that scene in Mallrats where that dude, that fat guy from My Name is Earl, is staring at that picture, and everybody keeps walking up like, "Oh, it's a sailboat." And he's not seeing the fucking sailboat, and he's getting pissed.
Right.
And the kid walks up and he's like, "Oh, it's a schooner." And he's like, "Oh, you stupid son of a bitch. It's a sailboat, not a schooner." And he's like, "A sailboat is a schooner, you fat bastard." And he fucking screams at the kid that the Easter Bunny's not real. If you want a paranormal experience, you have to be that fat bastard from Mallrat. You have to stare at that fucking painting
Right. And be
until
patient.
it comes to you.
Yep.
Because it's there. I mean, I'm a firm believer it's there. It's just we have right place, right time, or in some situations, fucking right place, wrong time. You know, as J-Dub, I'm sure if she could pick her to go her whole life without having the experience she did, she would.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, towards the end when, why she moved out. But I think that kind of leads into the next one then too. Not J-Dub's story, but the fact that, the right place at the right time. What Hell's Gate's next, right? Was Hell's Gate next?
Hell's Gate was 4.
Oh.
Next was the whatchamacallit, the Whisper Estate.
The Whisper Estate, yeah.
Which that place, there was a lot of weird shit about, on top of the stuff you talked about. When you were doing your research, did you come across the most recent death in that house, the one in 1977?
I did not. No.
There is a bunch of stories. The last deaths in that house was a father and his special needs son in 1977. And apparently there was some like hinky stuff involved in that death, but like, I could not find details to save my life, but it was brought up in multiple articles. They talk about the doctor that ran an office down there for 26 years,
right?
You talked about, and the daughter burning up and everything. But like the 3 articles I read, like they mentioned that father and son, but like I could not find details for my life to tell me what happened or how that tied into the supernatural at all.
Yeah, I totally missed that somewhere along the lines. I don't know. I kept focusing back on, I do believe that our friend Connor Biddle actually was in, him and his crew went and did a investigation there. I was going to go back and watch it, but I have not had the time. So, yeah, one of these days I'm going to go watch his episode of Whispers Estates.
Yeah, Paranormal Encounters, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. As we're winding into the later of the evening here, man, my brain is starting to shut down. This is
I got you.
This is my
Talking
third
about long episodes. This is going to be a long one. But no, Connor does great work. I check out his stuff every now and then. He's on my socials, so I see him when he posts up new stuff and everything.
Right on.
But I mean, when you have a house like that house, like the Whisper House, that's been around since 1894, especially in that time frame, there's definitely be a lot of deaths in there and a lot of hinky shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially that it was being a hospital on the bottom floors. The shit doctors got away with back in the days.
Well, wasn't there? Is that the one that has the graveyards and the graves in the back and the body pit?
Yep, absolutely. Because he, like I said, he did. They claim that there's over 2 dozens worth of ghosts there, and they're like majority of them are his patients / victims for the crazy ass shit he was doing.
Yep.
But you were talking about Hell's Gate.
Yeah.
And that was the 4th story that you talked about that night. Out in was it Clay County? Is that the county it's in?
No, it's in Brazil. I don't know about the county, but it's in Brazil, Indiana.
Yeah, Brazil. Yep. And that's just the county it resides in. Brazil. So
and we were talking about the Edna Collins, and it's the same thing. I can't imagine that if you go there, that every time you go there, you're going to see the stuff on the wall start to glow and blood start to run. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see that every time, even if you go through all the steps that they talk about doing. But it's still an immense possibility. I mean, somebody has saw that along the way, and
there with places like that, like this, for me, you have to think about with paranormal stuff as far as like there are small town paranormal things that you can find.
Oh yeah,
everywhere. There's a lot of these, especially with like hotels, and you know this at this point. Hotels, it's actually something we kind of touch on later here. There's always a story in a hotel about a bride.
Oh yeah.
There's always a story about a cemetery where a certain grave has a cherub on it that does this, or
if you're there at a certain time, the light will glow off of the stone or whatever.
Yeah, and it's these things like this to where people are like, oh, these are everywhere. And I think that leads into another paranormal experience, which is like, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is tulpas. And what tulpas are a paranormal thing that is basically breathed to life by so many people believing that it puts enough energy out there to where it, in fact, itself becomes real.
And that's where the Slender Man would come in, correct?
Exactly. Stuff like that. It's just like stuff that so many people said it was this and this and this. And like all that energy has got to go somewhere.
Right.
And like the believing of tulpa is just like the fact is like, this is real, this is real, this is real, this is real from so many people to where it itself is brought to life by that. So it's also ever changing.
Right.
It's something that has literally been around forever, and they covered it in different shows and stuff. Hell, they even covered it in Supernatural. It's like the story changes, so the entity itself will actually change with time.
Right.
To reflect the stories itself. So like you'd be like, my grandpa back when I was a kid said that if you went to this cemetery at this time, these 2 statues turned and kissed. And then by the time it gets to his grandson is like, well, when I was told this story that there's a statue in the cemetery that turns around and flips you the bird. and so as the story changes, the event changes because of the energy that's poured into it.
Right.
And I feel like that stuff like that with like, it goes back to what we were talking about with the bridge, is like there is so many stories of honk your horn or turn your engine off at this point and there will be fingerprints on your bumper.
Right.
Or kids will push you over the railroad tracks because a school bus got mushed here.
Yep.
And it's in every county. And then like I think that like I'm a firm believer of energy effect shit. Just like if you're in a room with people and somebody's got a really fucking shitty attitude, even if they're not being mean to people, like it's contagious, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think that affects other things too. Like it could breathe something to life, and that could possibly be what's with Hell Gate, you know?
Absolutely.
Somebody one day
Absolutely.
said the walls bleed, and the next person says the wall bleed, and the next person says the wall bleeds, and a shadow man chases you the fuck out.
Yeah.
And then the story grows, and so does the energy down there. And the next thing you know, when you walk down there, it feels like you're walking through soup, and a man with in shadows chases you while you're looking at bloody walls. You know,
It's always a good time. Always a good time.
I ain't about it. Walking no tunnel,
So the last part, number 5, is the French Lick Hotel.
which is located in French Lick,
French Lick.
Indiana.
Absolutely.
That's
and if
an
you
odd fucking name, man.
French Lick, yeah, it's always been a little strange. Larry Bird actually came from French Lick.
Huh.
Born in, I do believe. If not, Colton will let me know.
I got a French Lick once. It cost me like $95.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got nothing for you there, buddy. But once again, it's a hotel story.
Yep.
All the stories that go with it, and I don't even think we touched on that with the story. And the Blue Lady was there.
Yeah.
And with French Lick, it's the mayor. It's the mayor who's there and still resides there after all these years. So,
or the bellboy.
The bellboy, yeah.
Yep.
I don't think he's as cool as that other bellboy who actually opened the door. I can't remember what episode that was.
Oh, you talking about the maintenance man that was working on the air conditioner or whatever? And
he walked in
about one.
Yeah.
Was changing it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing better than a ghost that does a job, like one that's lending you a hand. Well,
and that's what I brought up when they were talking about in one of the other episodes about the landscapers who they could see trimming the bushes. I'm like, well, they actually trimming the fucking bushes? Well, no, they're ghosts, but the bellhop unlocked the door and then fucking turned the air down. Yeah. So how is that possible? So I don't know.
Just like we're saying with podcasts, ghosts get better at their job as times go on,
I don't know, man. I love doing the Haunted Indiana. I thought it was fun to be able to give 5 different locations and, not spend an entire episode, trying to give you a story about something that's just maybe not there.
No, absolutely. It's not everyone can be like 5 pages worth of shit,
Yeah. Yep. So I think I'm going to continue to do that. I want to do the Montana thing. We had a listener, I do believe Rodney, that said, hey, what do we got in Montana? So there are plenty up there. So here probably soon I'll end up doing a Montana episode, but we got a lot of emails and a lot of stuff we need to get to and research. And of course, I'm still after the whole Bigfoot thing and the aliens to Bigfoots and portals to.
You'll never run out of Bigfoot content. There's so much Bigfoot stuff out there, right? Man. You can just have a recurring Bigfoot section.
It'll be amazing, I'm sure.
So that brings us to our 4th case.
Yes.
This month. Our most recent, which was back to the rocker chick. And she took us to whatchamacallit?
Yeah.
She took us to the St. Louis Cemetery out in New Orleans. But before we dig into the actual cases she talked about and everything, I wanted to talk to you with something we haven't done so far. Is I want to talk to you about some of the subjects y'all touched on before at the beginning of the episode. Starting when y'all discussed having something so unbelievable happen to you that when you tell people, they think you're lying or just telling bullshit. And when y'all were talking about that, especially with you and Ampy talking about the watching the star burn out, nobody believing you, even though you're both there and you've seen it.
Yep.
And like we talked about before, a lot of people don't talk about like weird shit that happens to them because you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, people are just going to think I'm bullshitting or crazy.
Right.
Well, when I was younger and I was working in Mauriceville at a place called Pizza, Pasta, and Wings, I was driving to work one day, same route every day. You know how it is.
Yep, absolutely.
You have a thing, you go. And one of the first friends I made when I moved to Texas was my buddy James. And I was driving to work at Pizza, Pasta, and Wings, and I drive past a cross on the side of the road. And you know how those crosses pop up.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, usually somebody passes away or something like that. And as I'm driving past this cross, you catch it out the corner of my eye. You know, I'm going like 65 and it's the corner of my eye, but it's clear as day. And it says on the cross, James English, which is my buddy's name.
Okay.
And like I see that, and like I have a brief moment of panic, you know,
Right.
because I'm out of school at this point. He's still in school. And I hadn't spoken to him a little bit because, you know, I'm working, he's working. He works at the Market Basket Town. I work here. Restaurant hours are crazy and shit.
Right.
And well, he's still in school and I'm out of school. Our friend groups are different now. So we're not seeing each other as much. So a brief moment of panic hits me and I was like, no, if something happened to him, somebody would have told me. His
Right.
mom would have called me, this or that, but I still panic. So I get to, and I don't have texting at this point. You know, when I didn't have a texting phone when I moved to your house in Indiana, I was fighting as long as I could. When I pull in my parking lot, I call him and I was like, where are you at? And he was like, I'm at work, which his work is the grocery store in town. It's right across the way. So I drive over there and I go see him. He's ringing up groceries and stuff. And I talked to him. I was like, man, I just worried. I just panicked. I saw your name on this cross. I thought, and I was like, I went back and it doesn't say your name. It didn't even say anything. It was just a white cross. And he was like, no, I'm good, man. Blah, blah, blah. I'll talk to you later and this and that. And this part, it gets a little rough, but like, not even a month later, I go to the same job and I'm working with somebody that went to school with both of us. Her name was Jenna. And she looks pale. And I had left my phone at home. And she's like, people been trying to call you. I was like, what's going on? And the night before, my buddy was at a party that I didn't go to because I had work. And he went within Texas. They stopped selling alcohol at midnight, but in Louisiana, they still sell alcohol. So it's not uncommon for people that are partying and stuff to drive to Louisiana and go get booze and come back.
But and to be fair, where you guys live, it's not 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not far at all, especially from Reesville.
Right.
My buddy wasn't even driving, but he got in a car with a bunch of people, and he was one of the few people wearing a seatbelt, and they got in an accident, and he died. And I had only told the me seeing his name on a cross to a few people. I had told my now brother-in-law. I had told James himself, my at that time girlfriend, and like it wasn't even a month later. And he died in a car accident on the side of the road. And I just, it kept flashing back to me. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, it's almost like you kind of saw it coming, you know?
Right.
And like, I just like, it's not a story I tell normally and everything. It's because like you get that thing in your head. You're like, people are going to think you're insane or you're making something up. And it's just like, it stuck with me forever, and it always will, because I can still see it as clear today. On the side of that cross, I saw his name, like, and it didn't make sense how clear I saw it, because like I said, I was going 65 miles an hour on the side of the road, but like it just still to this day, it's like I know what I saw and I know what happened. I don't know, I can't explain it.
Right.
It's just like Aunt Bobby saying like she was thinking about people driving on the wrong side of the road and how the fuck could they manage that, and then the next thing she knows, somebody's coming at her on the wrong side of the road.
Well,
so,
mine for me was always thinking of somebody. The prime example, I used to work with this girl named Britta. She worked at the hospital with us, and I remember, because we kind of kept in touch after she left, not like real heavy. I mean, we weren't like, boozing buddies or anything, but we kind of kept in contact a little bit, and I remember one day I was like, man, I haven't heard or seen from, Britta in like forever. And it wasn't more than 2 hours later, I ran across her in the street, downtown Warsaw.
And I'm like, how that happens.
It's just, it's so insane. But yeah, when you get to thinking about or talking about somebody in the same instance as you, is, that's there. And then, if something happens, a lot of people might say that's a law of attraction, is you're thinking it and so on and so forth. In your case, I don't see it that way, but in my case, maybe that's what that is you kind of will it to happen, and there it is. But I don't know. It's crazy to really think about, the car coming up the wrong side, 5 minutes after you were thinking, why would that happen? Why that would never happen? And
It makes you feel like it's same with deja vu, you know?
right.
Like you'll have like a dream or something that hits you, and then like 2 years later that exact same thing happens, and then it triggers that thought that you had like 2 years ago.
Right.
Like it makes you feel like, have I been here before?
Uh-huh.
Or like, and who knows? How can you explain that? How can you explain somebody being like, why would a car come down the side of the road? And the next thing you know, the car's coming down the side of the road.
Right.
Or me seeing
Yeah.
my buddy's name on a cross, and then less than a month later, he dies on the side of the road.
Right.
It's just the human condition is fucking weird, and
Yep.
the energy we put out there is weird. And like, who knows? Maybe we have done this before.
Well, I mean, that is a theory. You just when you die, you just start again, go through it all.
So who knows? But
or is it a glitch in the Matrix?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
It could be a fucking simulation all fucked up. But that brings me to my second part. You guys talked about Nick Cage, and you were trying to figure out why he wanted his grave to be in
New Orleans. Yeah.
New Orleans, especially after you looked it up and seen that he wasn't from New Orleans.
Right.
Funny thing about Nick Cage is he intentionally bought one of the most haunted and gruesome houses in New Orleans. The how am I gotta say his name right? La Laurie house was home to Madame Delphine Lalaurie and her husband, Dr. Louis Lalaurie.
Okay.
This was a couple in a house that are known worldwide for beyond inhuman torture and experiments done to slaves.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. On April 10th, 1834, rescuers responded to a fire at the mansion. While they were there, eventually they discovered a multitude of slaves bound and mutilated in the attic, and they were still alive, some of them, alongside some of the local missing African Americans from the community. Upon like the news getting out of what they found there, her house was surrounded by an angry mob, but unfortunately her big goofy ass managed to sneak out and escape back to France, where she lived out the rest of her life, basically as she had no choice. She couldn't come back.
Right.
The mob did eventually burn down half the house, and it was rebuilt. But Nick Cage bought it because it's known to be extremely fucking haunted. It's actually out there on the French Quarter. You probably fucking walked past it.
Oh, I'm sure.
You're out there.
We had the conversation of the priestess the voodoo priestess that has a house right there in the French Quarter also.
Yeah.
We had that conversation about whether we'd walked past it too, and there's something to do with, she has several properties around the New Orleans or whatever.
If I remember right, she was alive when all of this actually happened, but I don't know how, but Nick Cage actually lost that house in 2009 to foreclosure.
Oh shit, to bed.
Yeah.
Come on, Nick Cage.
Yeah. And then that American Horror Stories actually depicted the house and the events in a season they called Coven.
Okay.
But yeah, you guys, the main thing you guys covered was the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Marie Laveau.
Yeah, that's it.
She did it all. I mean, she was a renowned healer. She was an expert herbalist, trained midwife. Even back then, she was qualified, or the people qualified her as a nurse. She owned and operated her own beauty parlor,
Right.
And she was the third female leader of voodoo in New Orleans history, like ever.
I believe it.
A title that she held until she died, only being challenged once, and that was in 1850s. And the person lost out, and she got to keep being being the leader and everything.
Being the cool kid.
Yeah. But after passing, a large quantity of the practitioners and believers of voodoo actually fell off in that area, and it's never really bounced back. That's how big she was.
Well, and we talked about that in the episode about all the people who came to mourn her. If she was, like the big bad, like they were contemplating or talking about, you wouldn't have that much support from the community.
It was just pure respect,
yeah,
and if not some fear. I mean, because they had rich, white, like high society people come to her funeral, which was not something that happened back then.
Right.
But like her voodoo was not like your mainstream, like normal practice voodoo. She fused her voodoo with Roman Catholicism, a mixture of African spirits and Native American spiritual techniques and teachings. She interwove it all because like she lived in what is one of the melting pots of America,
Right.
and her teachings and religious ideology was reflected that. Because even her name she was named because of the teachings of Catholicism and everything, and her daughters were named the same name as her because of that too, because she had a daughter that was Marie the second, and they had Marie the third.
Oh, nice.
So, and one of her daughters technically ended up taking her place when she passed away. But like you can't dispute her. Like I said, she was the real deal, and like I said, everybody in that area either feared or respected her, but either way, they all showed up to mourn her, and they all still to this day people go to her, albeit you have to pay an admission fee to get in the cemetery now.
You gotta buy a ticket to ride that ride.
Could you imagine that you want to go visit your family and you have to fucking buy a ticket?
Well, if you remember, Rocker Chick actually said if your family has a plot in there, you have a pass. Yeah. You just got to schedule your visit. Yeah.
There's
you can't just show up
stopping and dropping off flowers. You got to be like, hey, is it cool if I visit great grandma today?
Yeah.
Oh no, you guys got 3 tours going? Okay, I'll try.
Yeah, I get the next round. Yeah, and I'm a believer in that. It's when I go see my father at the graveyard, at the cemetery, it's not something that I pre-planned in advance. It's like I'm just gonna swing in. And fortunately for me, my buddy Craig is just a couple stones over from him, so I can see that and see him, and then jump in the car and go around and see my grandma and grandpa.
See, it's funny you should say that because it's the same situation for me. I have a store like mine in Orange, and Kayla's mom lives in Orange, so we go there all the time. And on the way is the cemetery, and that cemetery is where my buddy that I just spoke of is buried. His mother, who I was very close with, that died shortly after him, was buried, and my cousin's buried. So that's how it happens for me too. Like I'll be driving that way, and I'll be like, it's not planned, but I'll go out there, I'll put a quarter on a grave, take my time, talk to him, and then drive around the plot, talk to James and his mom, and
absolutely.
So I can imagine being like, I want to go see them, and then pulling up, and they'll be like, did you schedule your meeting today? No.
Nope. And I don't plan on it. Just open the damn doors. Let me in. I'd be pissing and moaning because,
that's why when I go, they can just toast me up and throw me in a coffee can, and people can talk to me all the way to the fucking kitchen.
Well, speaking of, I got to get to, I need to close this out for tonight.
I got you, man. We ran long. I tend to talk too much.
Well, we were covering, we covered a lot of different things. Tune in on Wednesday, for the regular United States of Paranormal, where we talk a little bit more about their religion and stuff we talked about during last week's episode. We didn't really touch on that today, which is fine because we talked about it a little bit more in this coming episode. So I've gotten phone calls and emails that talk about the religious stuff that we talked about in episode 74. So the take on it is absolutely amazing. And once again, to all those who called and emailed, I've so much appreciate it. Nothing negative about what I said and how I believe, and I appreciate that, so digging it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I have a firm belief in religion is like different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely.
Believe in what you want to believe in. As long as you're not hurting people, I could give fuck less.
Absolutely. Please do your thing and be happy. That's all we want. We just want happiness. And if that's what makes you happy, then so be it. I'm happy for you. So I believe differently than most people when it comes to stuff like that, or at least I thought, until, you see some emails and stuff like that portray that they believe the same way you do. And I love that. So, and I'll get to that here in a few weeks when we get back to a regular episode of the United States Paranormal. I'll read a couple of those emails and we'll go from there.
All right.
Don't forget to go check out the United States of Paranormal.com and check out our merch store. And, you get a really cool other side t-shirt, which should be out now or soon thereafter within the next day or so.
Oh, yeah. T-shirts. We got new beer can shaped cups.
Dude, those are badass.
We got beanies, which I will absolutely getting one for the winter. I mean, it's 105 degrees here right now, but eventually the cold will come, and I've got big ass ears I need to cover up.
And there you go. No foofy jacket for him though.
No. I still got my orange poofy jacket, man. I ain't gonna let go of it. Marty McFly can wear one. I can wear one.
There you go. Yeah, and don't forget that Vamptober is coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Talked about in the last episode. Super excited. Tons of merch for that too. So, and this once again, Esteban, amazing job. You guys are gonna love this stuff. So, get out and check out United States Paranormal.com. And as always, if you got a story that you want to tell us, you want to send me a voice clip of you telling the story. I'm dying to do an episode where we just have the fans telling their stories. So yeah, send that to the United States of Paranormal at gmail.com.
Oh yeah. And if you want to, like I said, we'll be here every last Saturday of the month.
Yep.
If you got something you want us to talk about in here, just put the name section, say the other side or something.
Yep.
We'll be more than happy to talk about it. Keep your eyes peeled, like you said, for merch. We'll have some Vantober merch, but just like Dolltober, that's gonna be limited edition.
Yep.
Get it.
It's only going to be
for them.
Exactly. Only in October. I love it.
And
maybe we ought to bring back at least one Dolltober shirt for October.
We have some pumpkin stuff from the isolated stuff that we could definitely slap on some stuff that doesn't even say Dolltober. It's just got the United States Paranormal on the pumpkin.
Nice.
We get that in there too. If you want a chance for some Dolltober merch, if you're unlike me and you actually want to think of Dolltober, let us know.
Yeah, Dolltober almost ruined Logan. That's all I'm saying.
It was a lot, man. But
it was
a great merch for it. We had our little voodoo doll. Speaking of voodoo in New Orleans, sitting on top of Pumpkin. He's a righteous little dude. If you're interested, let us know. Maybe we'll slap it up there for a week or so for you to snag it.
Oh hell yeah, definitely.
If you dig our babbling, you absolutely will dig the babbling of other Golden Mojo Entertainment Enterprise.
Yeah, Enterprise.
Now that's a different space show than Empire. Check out some of our other shows. We have got on Mondays, we've got the Call Guys, which is Colton and Chico. And right now they've been doing their character episodes. Like they just did Batman this week. Before they did James Bond. They did Harry Potter. If you're into that kind of thing. I'm not a wizard guy myself.
Yeah, it's space wizard.
Check them out every Monday. And then on Tuesdays, we have got Golden Image podcast.
Yep.
Where you got Golden J, the Skywalker, and Chico, and they are checking out things and local and outside of the local thing every now and then.
Every once in a while, yeah.
They're doing things so you will go do things.
Absolutely.
Or if they hit a bad spot, so you won't have to.
Yeah, we don't want to send you someplace that you ain't gonna like.
And then is Golden 80s Tuesday too?
No, Golden 80s is on Thursdays. Obviously, you're gonna get United States of Paranormal every Wednesday with me, Golden J, the Rocker Chick, and J Dub.
No, you're not saying it right. It's J Dub.
J Dub. You got to get the hands too. Yeah, so you got to have the spirit hands when you do it. J Dub.
And then Thursday we have got Golden 80s podcast.
Yep. Golden J and Brandon or Frankie Vegas. I'm sorry.
Frankie Vegas. You got to call him by his radio name. If I got to call you Golden J in here, you got to call him Frankie.
I know.
I'm one of the only ones that doesn't have a radio name. I just couldn't ever figure anything out.
What was it? Longbox Logan?
Yeah, that's my write-in name. You got to have a pen pal name, man.
Absolutely. People are loving Frankie, man.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to continue on with that. We've got some great episodes. But it's all about us growing up in the 80s, and we talk about different events, movies, TV, whatever we're into.
When you guys are ready to do your 80s toys and or horror, you let your boy know. I'll come over there. I'll throw down.
All right.
I might not have been in the 80s, but I absolutely love the 80s.
Love the 80s toys. Also on Thursdays, you can get the Indiana Chiefs fans, where it's me, Chico, and the Chief Phil Jordan, as we talk about everything Kansas City Chiefs.
Which the season just starting up. So
yep. I'm getting ready to head out there in a couple of weeks for the season opener in Arrowhead, watching them lift that banner.
Nice.
Super Bowl champions. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then on hiatus right now is the Murderers. Hopefully we'll have news on them real soon. But as of right now, they're on hiatus. But you can always go back and binge the first 64 episodes. There's a lot of great content there, and you can hear Golden J actually solve every murder in all 64 murders.
Yeah, something like that. And you also on Fridays have the Court of Books and Booze.
Absolutely.
Or every other week, the Court of Milk and Cookies.
Yep.
Which is Skywalker, Jess, and I always forget her name.
Amanda.
I know it kills her when I do it too.
Yeah, she hates you for that.
No. Yeah, they basically have a book club, and they read books. God bless them. I can't do that. I've been working on the same book for like the last month, and it's not going well. And then, like I said, when you have a Court of Milk and Cookies, that's when they got the kids on.
Yeah.
And they talk about a book they're reading, which is adorable.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
It warms your heart.
My grandson's killing it because he's been the majority of the co-host, and he's killing it on that mic, man. He's ready to be a podcaster.
It's almost like it's in the blood.
I know. Weird, isn't it?
Now, the only one that doesn't have a podcast is Mojo.
Yeah, she's too busy. But yeah, I like their slogan: grab a book, grab a beer, and meet me in the basement.
Oh, it sounds a little sketchy.
It is totally sketchy.
But anytime they throw a basement in, it gets a little worrisome.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the Golden Mojo Empire, man. I'm very proud of it. Everybody's working hard, and you can find all the merch for all the other podcasts at goldenmojoent.com if you want to go check that out too. I've been working on building some stuff on there. It's a lot of work, and bear with me, we're getting there.
Look, I got some Call Guys onesies I put on there. You got a kid that likes movies and might have a bad opinion every now and then, slap them in that.
Yeah, a bad opinion. Oh yeah, I did order one of those for Gunnar and Sarah. So yeah, they got one, but yeah, the stuff turns out really good. I'm real happy with our new merch people, and the stuff just is hanging on very, very well. Very impressed with it. So go check it out. Lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right, man. I need to get out of here.
Okay. Golden Jay's got to go. He's got guests and whatnot. Listen,
I see you're an hour different than me, and I got to go to bed because I still have to go to work in the morning.
Same, yeah.
Whereas the rocker chick does not. So
listen, people, you don't have to be worried about what happens when you're gone, because you can believe in one thing and one thing only: that me and Golden Jay will be waiting for you on the other side. Keep it spooky.
See you on the other side. Mine doesn't make any sense now. I gotta come up with a new
yours has been building up to this the whole time.
Oh,
You've always
been
saying see you on the other side.
See you on the other side.
And here we are.
All right, everybody. Have a good day. Be safe out there. And remember, keep it spooky.
Bye.
Late. Thank you for listening to the United States of Paranormal. Check us out at theunitedstatesofparanormal.com or at any other of our social media pages. At Twitter at TOSOPPOD, at Instagram at the United States of Paranormal, or Facebook at the United States of Paranormal, or YouTube at the United States of Paranormal 1795.
Please check out our other podcasts in the Golden Mojo Entertainment Network: The Call Guys, Golden Image Podcast, Indiana Chiefs Fans, The Golden 80s, Murd Nerds, and A Court of Books and Booze.
And if you have a location you would like us to check into, or a creepy story that you would love to tell us, please email us at the United States of Paranormal at gmail.com. Please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen.